Have you ever wondered why some men occupy a woman's thoughts constantly while others fade into the background like forgotten songs? Why does she check her phone hoping it's him? Why does his name make her heart skip? And more importantly, have you ever asked yourself if you could be that man, the one she simply cannot stop thinking about? Before we dive deep into this journey together, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and smash that like button, because what I'm about to share with you today isn't just another dating advice video. This is a complete transformation of how you approach relationships, backed by principles from one of history's most strategic minds, Machiavelli. And I need you to watch this entire video because by the end, I promise you, your perspective on love and attraction will never be the same again. This could genuinely change your love life forever. Now let me ask you something personal. Remember that person who broke your heart? The one whose memory still stings when a certain song plays or when you pass by that coffee shop where you used to meet? I want you to think about that pain for a moment, that hollow feeling in your chest, those sleepless nights wondering what went wrong, replaying every conversation, analyzing every moment, trying to figure out where you lost her. Maybe you're even dealing with that pain right now. Maybe your ex still haunts your thoughts, and you're wondering if you'll ever feel whole again. Here's the truth that nobody tells you. That pain you feel, that obsessive thinking, that constant wondering, it's actually proof of something powerful. It's proof that someone once occupied your mind so completely that their absence created a void. And here's the real question. Wouldn't you want to be that person for someone else? Not to hurt them, but to be so compelling, so magnetic, so unforgettable that they think about you with warmth, with desire, with that electric anticipation? I've been where you are. I remember sitting alone at 3 a.m, scrolling through old photos, wondering why I wasn't enough, wondering why she chose someone else, wondering if I'd ever stop feeling like half a person. But then something shifted. I discovered that the greatest minds in history, particularly Machiavelli, understood human psychology in ways that would make modern psychologists envious. And when I applied these principles not to manipulate, but to genuinely become more attractive and memorable, everything changed. So let's embark on this journey together. What I'm going to share with you today comes from The Prince, Machiavelli's masterpiece on power, strategy, and human nature. But we're not talking about political manipulation here. We're talking about understanding the fundamental principles of what makes someone unforgettable, what creates genuine attraction, and how you can ethically and authentically become the man who occupies her thoughts day and night. The principle of strategic scarcity. Let me tell you about Marco. Marco was a friend of mine who had everything going for him on paper. Good-looking, successful career, genuinely kind heart. But there was one problem. He was always available. Every text was answered within seconds. Every invitation was accepted immediately. He rearranged his entire life around the women he dated, and guess what happened? They lost interest. Every single time. Think about your own experience for a moment. When have you wanted something more? A concert ticket, a limited edition item, or even someone's attention? It's usually when it's not readily available, isn't it? This is Machiavelli's principle of strategic scarcity in action, though he applied it to power and kingdoms. The psychology remains identical for attraction. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must never appear too eager or too available because it diminishes his perceived value. He understood that human beings, by nature, desire what seems just slightly out of reach. But here's where most people get this wrong. They think playing hard to get means being cold, distant, or manipulative. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Strategic scarcity means you genuinely have a life so rich, so full, so purposeful that you're not always available because you're actually busy living. You're not pretending. You're not playing games. You're genuinely invested in your own growth, your own passions, your own mission in life. When she texts you and you don't respond immediately, it's not because you're staring at your phone counting minutes to seem cool. It's because you were actually at the gym, or working on that business idea, or having deep conversations with friends who challenge you to grow. Remember when you were heartbroken, and all you could think about was that person who left? Part of that obsession came from the fact that they were no longer available to you. The scarcity amplified the desire. Now imagine if you had been the one with that abundance mindset from the start. Imagine if you had been so engaged in your own purpose that she had to work a little to get your attention. Not because you were playing games, but because your life was genuinely that fulfilling. I want you to think about the most attractive version of yourself, not physically but energetically. What does that person do with their time? What are they passionate about? What makes them jump out of bed in the morning? That's the person you need to become. Because when you're that person, scarcity happens naturally. You're not available every second because you're too busy being exceptional. Here's a practical example. When she texts you, don't drop everything. Finish what you're doing. If you're working out, complete your workout. If you're reading, finish your chapter. If you're with friends, enjoy that moment fully. Then respond with genuine warmth and engagement. This isn't about making her wait. It's about respecting your own time and activities enough that you don't constantly interrupt your life. And here's the magic. When someone sees that you value your own time, they automatically value your time more too. They think about when they'll hear from you next. They wonder what you're doing. They start to miss you. But here's the critical part that Machiavelli also understood. Scarcity without substance is just absence. You can't just be unavailable and expect attraction. You must be worth waiting for. When you do give your attention, it needs to be high quality, present, engaged, real. Make her feel like when you're with her, she's the only person in the world. But when you're not with her, you're building something meaningful in your life. Think about it. Who do you remember more? The person who was always there, predictable, constant, forgettable, or the person whose presence felt like a gift, whose time felt valuable, who made every interaction count? Strategic scarcity makes every moment together more precious. It makes your presence something she anticipates rather than expects. And that anticipation, that wondering, that curiosity, that's what keeps you in her thoughts constantly. The power of calculated vulnerability. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you, especially coming from Machiavellian principles. Vulnerability, but not the kind you're thinking of. Not the desperate, oversharing, trauma-dumping kind that pushes people away. I'm talking about calculated vulnerability. The strategic revealing of your authentic self in ways that create deep connection while maintaining respect. I learned this lesson the hard way. After my worst heartbreak, I built walls so high that nobody could hurt me again. I became that stoic, emotionless guy who never let anyone see what was really going on inside. And you know what happened? I was safe, but I was also alone. Because without vulnerability, there's no connection. Without connection, there's no chemistry. Without chemistry, you're just another face she'll forget. Machiavelli understood that a ruler must be both loved and feared. But if you can't be both, it's better to be loved with respect than feared without connection. In relationships, this translates to being strong yet accessible, confident yet human, put together yet real. The magic happens when she sees both your strength and your struggles. When she understands that you're not perfect but you're genuine. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're on a date and she asks about your family. The weak response is to either shut down completely or to unload every family trauma you've ever experienced. The calculated vulnerability response is different. You might say something like, my relationship with my father taught me what kind of man I don't want to be. It wasn't easy growing up, but it gave me clarity on my values. I'm grateful for that now. See what happened there? You shared something real and meaningful. You showed depth and self-awareness, but you didn't make her your therapist. You didn't dump baggage. You invited her into your inner world just enough to see that there's something worth exploring. This is what makes you occupy her thoughts. She starts wondering about the rest of your story. She wants to know more. She sees that there are layers to you, depths to explore, stories to uncover. You're not a simple book she can read in one sitting. You're a mystery worth solving. But you're also warm enough that she feels invited to try. Think about the people who've impacted you most deeply in your life. Were they the ones who never showed any weakness? Or were they the ones who were strong but also real about their struggles? The teacher who admitted they didn't have all the answers but kept searching. The friend who shared their failures along with their successes. The mentor who showed you their scars and how they healed them. Those are the people you remember. Those are the people who occupy your thoughts because they showed you something real. Here's another critical element. Calculated vulnerability means sharing your growth, not just your pain. Don't just tell her you were heartbroken. Tell her what you learned from it. Don't just mention your struggles. Show her how they shaped your character. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being someone who takes their experiences and transforms them into wisdom. That's attractive. That's memorable. That's the kind of person someone thinks about at night. Let me ask you something. When you were dealing with your heartbreak, what did you learn about yourself? What did that pain teach you? How did it change your perspective on love, on relationships, on what you really want? Those insights, that growth, that's gold. That's what makes you different from every other guy. When you can share those lessons with appropriate timing and genuine reflection, you become fascinating. You become someone she wants to understand more deeply. But here's the boundary. Calculated vulnerability means you're selective about what you share and when. You don't share everything on the first date. You don't make every conversation heavy. You read the room. You gauge the connection. You reveal yourself gradually, like chapters in a compelling book. Each revelation makes her want to know more. Each genuine moment of openness creates a deeper bond. And that bond, that connection, that's what keeps you in her thoughts when you're not around. Remember, Machiavelli also taught that timing is everything. Strategic vulnerability isn't about dumping your life story. It's about knowing when to let your guard down just enough to let her in, but not so much that you lose the mystery. It's about being real without being reckless with your own story. And when you master this balance, you become unforgettable. The art of unpredictability. Here's where things get really interesting. And it's probably the most misunderstood principle of all unpredictability. Now, before you think I'm telling you to be flaky or unreliable, let me clarify. I'm talking about being dynamically interesting, not inconsistent in your character or values. Machiavelli observed that predictable rulers, those whose every move could be anticipated, were the easiest to defeat. They became boring. People stopped paying attention. But a ruler who could be generous one moment and firm the next, who could surprise people with unexpected wisdom or unexpected action, that ruler kept everyone engaged, kept everyone thinking, kept everyone on their toes. Let me share a story about my friend David. David was the definition of predictable. Every date was dinner and a movie. Every conversation followed the same pattern. Every weekend, the same routine. And the women he dated, they'd start off interested and within weeks they'd drift away. Not because David was a bad guy. He wasn't. He was kind, stable, reliable. But he was also forgettable. He blended into the background of their lives like elevator music. Then something changed. David started salsa dancing. Not because he wanted to impress anyone, but because he genuinely wanted to try something new. One evening, instead of suggesting the usual dinner date, he took his girlfriend to his dance class. She was shocked. Who was this man? Where did this come from? Suddenly, she saw a side of David she never knew existed. He was playful. He was passionate about learning something. He was willing to look foolish while mastering a new skill. That one unexpected move made her see him completely differently. She started wondering what else she didn't know about him. She started paying attention in ways she hadn't before. This is the art of unpredictability. It's not about being inconsistent with your values or your character. You should absolutely be reliable when it comes to your integrity, your word, your commitments, but in how you express yourself, in the experiences you create, in the conversations you initiate, there should be an element of pleasant surprise. Think about your own life right now. Are you predictable? Do people, including the women you're interested in, know exactly what you're going to say before you say it? Can they predict your every move? If so, you're not occupying their thoughts, because their brain has already categorized you. You're filed away, understood, complete. There's nothing left to discover. But what if you weren't so easy to figure out? What if sometimes you were playful and other times deeply philosophical? What if you could be the guy who suggests an adventurous weekend hike and also the guy who invites her to a quiet bookstore coffee date? What if your music taste ranged from classical to hip-hop? What if your interests were varied enough that she never quite knew what fascinating thing you might share next? I remember after my heartbreak, I fell into this routine where I was just going through the motions. Work, gym, home, sleep, repeat. I was predictable even to myself. I bored myself. No wonder I wasn't interesting to anyone else. But then I started saying yes to things that scared me. I took an improv comedy class. I started learning Italian. I went to poetry readings. I tried rock climbing, not to become someone I wasn't, but to explore all the different parts of who I could be, and something magical happened. When I would go on dates or interact with women I was interested in, I had things to talk about that surprised them. I wasn't trying to be impressive. I was genuinely excited about these new experiences. That excitement was contagious. That unpredictability made me interesting. Suddenly, I wasn't just another guy with a job and a gym membership. I was someone with layers, with curiosities, with a life that seemed rich and full of unexpected turns. Here's another angle on this. Be unpredictable in how you show affection and interest. If you always text good morning, it becomes expected, then unnoticed, then eventually missed only if you stop. But if sometimes you send a thoughtful good morning message, and other times you wait until afternoon to share something interesting, you saw that reminded you of her. You create variation. She can't predict when she'll hear from you or what you'll say, so she thinks about it more. She anticipates it more. Machiavelli would also say that unpredictability must be grounded in purpose. Don't be random for the sake of being random. Every unpredictable move should still align with your authentic self. If you hate dancing, don't suddenly become a dancer. But maybe there's something you've always been curious about but too afraid to try. That's your unpredictability waiting to emerge. Maybe you've always wanted to learn photography, or try stand-up comedy, or volunteer at an animal shelter, or take a cooking class. These aren't performances. These are explorations of your authentic interests that happen to make you more dimensional and interesting. When you embrace unpredictability authentically, you become someone she can't quite figure out. And human beings are wired to think constantly about puzzles they haven't solved. You don't want to be a mystery in a dark, closed-off way. You want to be an unfolding story where each chapter reveals something new and interesting. That's what keeps you in her thoughts. That's what makes her curious. That's what makes her want to know more, see more, experience more of who you are. And while she's wondering about what you'll do or say next, you're occupying space in her mind constantly. The principle of self-sovereignty. Now we arrive at perhaps the most powerful principle of all, and it's the one that Machiavelli built his entire philosophy around: self-sovereignty. The idea that you are the ruler of your own kingdom, the master of your own fate, the author of your own story. And in the context of making a woman think about you constantly, this principle is absolutely foundational, because without it, everything else crumbles. Let me be brutally honest with you. When you were heartbroken, when your ex left you devastated, when you felt like your world was ending, what really happened? You had given someone else the power to define your worth. You had made them the center of your universe. And when they left, your universe collapsed. I know this because I've been there. I felt that crushing weight of losing someone I had made my everything. And the worst part? I didn't just lose her. I lost myself. This is what Machiavelli warned against in Rulers. Never let your power depend entirely on the whim of others. A prince who derives all his strength from the support of others is vulnerable to losing everything when that support vanishes. But a prince who builds his own foundation, his own skills, his own character, his own purpose, that prince is unshakable. And that's exactly what you need to become. Self-sovereignty in relationships means that while you value her presence, you don't need her presence to be complete. While you enjoy her company, you don't require her company to be happy. While you want to build something with her, you're already building something magnificent on your own. This isn't about being cold or independent to the point of disconnection. It's about being so grounded in your own identity, purpose, and worth that you come to the relationship as a whole person, not a half person looking for completion. And here's the paradox that changes everything. When you truly don't need her to be complete, that's when she can't stop thinking about you. Because most men she encounters are looking for her to fill a void, to validate their worth, to give their life meaning. But you already have meaning. You already have purpose. You already know your worth. And that's incredibly rare and incredibly attractive. Let me tell you what happened when I finally understood this. After months of healing from my